And we're living in a world where people are in debt or over leveraging themselves.
Well, I got another saying for you. You ready for it? Stay small enough long enough and you'll be big enough soon enough.
And you're everywhere, bro. You're tapping on all these billionaire shoulders.
Well, you get to a certain point and then they start to come to you. But I'm more motivated now than ever to keep on creating content, to keep on growing. This is like the craziest form of like free marketing that I think has ever been invented. If a bird lands on a branch, does the bird trust the branch or does it trust its wings? And the clue,
Ooh.
I've seen many birds land on branches, but what I've never seen is the branch break and the bird fall and die. Trust your wings.
I'm just playing, I don't fight, I do pray. I only go the way of Mr. Yahweh. Try to correct me, but I'm stuck in my own ways.
Why wouldn't you take advantage of that?
I don't believe I have hatred. I just believe that it's
What's up, guys? Welcome back. Today's episode is a special one, especially if you are interested in growing your business or maybe even learning about business. James from the School of Hard Knocks sat with me today and not only spoke very fast, but every single word was meaningful and it was jam-packed with a lot of wisdom. This guy travels the world and learns from the greatest billionaires and millionaires around the world. And today he wants to share all of the fun things that he's learned. So sit back, relax, and don't forget to subscribe and enjoy today's episode. Can I say something before we get started? You have the most innocent demeanor I've ever experienced. Have you got this before?
I've gotten, somebody told me recently, I was just with the former CEO of 7-Eleven and Blockbuster, and he, I guess, coined the term for me, relentless positivity. So I guess that's kind of in line with
You're radiating.
That's true.
Yeah, I think.
You're radiating. Before we get into this episode, I want the viewers to understand who's James, where does he come from?
Yeah.
You got the School of Hard Knocks, and you're everywhere, bro. You're tapping on all these billionaire shoulders. How do you find these people, bro? There's like, are you a spy, or do you like have people that are like on calls?
Yeah. Well, you get to a certain point and then they start to come to you. One of my favorite sayings ever is, and I live by this, is credibility kills all bad attitudes. And I learned that because, a lot of the billionaires that I interview now, a year ago, some pretty popular ones, it was a rejection or it was a no, or they wouldn't even get back to us. But then, when the first billionaire I ever did was in 2022, we did Mark Cuban, and I cold approached him. And then the first really big celebrity we did was Tom Cruise, and it was actually his idea to do the interview though. So Paramount had reached out to us on his behalf before he had a movie that had come out, and I guess he had been seeing our content for some while. And ended up having them reach out, and we set that up. And once we kind of did that Tom Cruise interview, then a lot of the big ones started to fall. And a lot of the people that at one point were kind of, not wanting to do it, they wanted to be too cool for school.
Yeah.
Then they kind of started to come around. But the way that we go about getting them, I'm not signed or rep by a big agency. I choose to kind of do everything in house. Got a team of 50 to 60 employees now, 2 other co-founders that are absolutely incredible. But man, it's just, we're so good at building relationships with people, and we get a lot of inbound now as well.
So you speak so fast, and I thought it was just for Instagram, just to get the monetization, you know what I mean, the timing on it.
That's important though.
Because I thought you were on some Mr. Beast stuff, you know what I mean, the way you ask a question. I thought it was a tactic, and the reason why I thought it was is because it makes me want to listen to you. I feel like you're so confident, and with your speed, it makes me feel like I have to keep up, or I'm gonna be left behind.
Yeah.
Have you ever bumped into somebody where my God, he was rude, bro? I don't even know if I want to post that out there.
100%. We just had an encounter in Beverly Hills yesterday with a very prominent celebrity, and kind of went up to him, just had a conversation. I was like, man, that guy, he kind of treated us like shit a little bit. I'm on the flip side, I've met people like Will Smith that just had the most incredible energy to myself and my entire team. So, and sometimes you'd expect people of that kind of status per se. I like to believe that I think the celebrity is dead now. I heard that term recently, and I kind of do believe in that. But there are definitely people that I've met over the course of this that I've actually gone out of my way to go interview them, and I just won't even post it just off a general principle because I saw how they treat their team and how they treat our team, honestly. And to me, it's one of the blessings about growing this channel. We started it at 18 years old. I was 18 or 19. Now I'm 23. Started the channel, and now multiple businesses behind it. But I've really been able to observe and learn from so many successful people. We've interviewed 41 billionaires as of this week. But most importantly, I'm able to learn from these people and take things from them that I want to implement to myself as a leader, as somebody trying to grow this company, but also things that I definitely don't want to be like. And these are people that, again, that a lot of people probably look up to, but seeing some of them, how they are behind the scenes, it's like, I'm not a big fan of how they operate.
I think that's one of the coolest things is you interview some like billionaires and millionaires that we might never really hear from unless you were to like go up to them and randomly talk to them. And the advice that they give are, such like gold pieces. And so from that, you've been able to like really take your business to the next level just from absorbing.
Yeah, 100%. In particular, one of the biggest commonalities I've seen from so many of these billionaires, and I kind of coined this expression after I interviewed Reid Hoffman, who's the founder of LinkedIn. He sold LinkedIn to Microsoft for a total of $26 billion. And one of the questions that I asked him, I was like, Reid, if you had to start from zero and you had 1 year to make $1 billion and your life depended on it, what would you do? And he goes, I'm going to stop you right there. He goes, I never play a 1 year game. I only play a 10-year game. So it's this concept that billionaires think in decades, not days.
Yeah.
And especially, I'm 23. A lot of our generation, they want everything instantly. They think it comes overnight. We just interviewed a gentleman out in Beverly Hills, and he said that the best advice that he ever got was, he had somebody, I forget what the license plate was, but pretty much saying that like in order to make any significant amount of impact or money or build any type of empire, it's a minimum of 5 years is what it really takes. And so that long-term mindset that they have is what we've been able to develop to not only think so much longer into the future, but just so much bigger of what's actually possible. I grew up in the DC area, and the thing about the DC, Virginia area is you're surrounded by all these people. The biggest level of success to them is getting like 100,000 government contracting job. To me, I was like, I grew up traveling the world a lot because I was in a military family. My dad ran the largest overseas military base in the world in South Korea. Being exposed to that at an early age just made me think so much bigger naturally, that I kind of wanted to do way more than just be, stuck in a government job in a cubicle. And I could never imagine going back to that now. Again, every job is a good job, not putting anything, nothing wrong with that there. But I feel like at a certain point you have to want more for yourself.
Amen. My dad used to tell me, be a sponge. When you walk in a room, absorb from all the good things, but don't forget the bad things. Because a lot of bad things that they do, they repeat it for years. And so if somebody that's older says, hey, cut this out, or don't think just 1 year, think 10 years, that could change a man's approach to starting something. Because if somebody's just planning 1 year and 1 year, it's still just getting warmed up, they could feel like it's on them. So you've been in it since you were 18, you're 23 now.
23 now.
So we're almost at half a decade.
Yeah.
What's the rest of the half of the decade look like for you?
I talk about this all the time. We have 20 million followers across all platforms, but I'm more motivated now than ever to keep on creating content, to keep on growing than I was when we had 0 followers. And I think a big reason for that is because another billionaire that I love and that we've interviewed is Mike Rapoli. He's the founder of Body Armor and Smart Water, Vitamin Water. He's done a total of 12 billion in exits to Coca-Cola. And he talks about how, when the big guy on top, when he gets a little bit too comfortable, the starving entrepreneur is going to come up and eat their lunch. And now I've seen, like in our realm, I talk about this all the time. I did not invent street interviews. Definitely not. Every major legacy news channel has been leveraging street interview content for decades now. But I think in the way that we've paved our own niche, we've done it in a very unique way where it's been creative and original to us. But I've seen, 1,000 people trying to do the exact same thing. And my thing is like, man, if you, the minute you kind of get comfortable and complacent at doing that, then people will come up and kind of take your spot. And the minute you lose that momentum, man, it's very, very hard to get it back. And so I think that's really been one of our ingredients to success over the last couple of years is I've probably been on 100 to 150 flights in just the last year because it's just nonstop go, go, go. But I have this burning desire and passion because I love what I do, and that's so important. But in terms of next, couple of years, doubling down on the current businesses that we have, I'm super big on focus. One of my favorite sayings is that concentration builds wealth, diversification keeps it. So doubling down in the media business, building out our all of our different vertical brands that we have, and I'm buying a bunch of real estate as well. So again, learning from the successful people, like you said, being a sponge, it's everything.
Dude, I love the way you speak. And when you're talking, I could tell you're pulling from a catalog in your mind from all the wise people that kind of like spoke to you. And I love that you're so willing to give it back. You're not like storing it up and keeping some things for yourself.
I was just having this conversation, and one of the things about this channel is, I've had 10,000 rejections trying to interview people. Obviously a lot of the interviews now with prominent celebrities or billionaire figures, they're definitely, a lot of those are set up, but for every interview that I do that's set up, I would like to do an organic interview as well, because you have to keep the main thing. The thing that got us here was organically cold approaching people, and people like that raw content when you're, approaching people in the street. But I was talking about this, that, in particular, this came up because, again, not going to name drop people because it's still somebody that I'm sure at some point I would interview and have a connection to this team. I'll tell you kind of afterwards, again, just for the sake of potentially.
You could always say it and we beep it out. So just FYI, I'll never throw you underneath the bus like that.
No, I know you would. I'll say it afterwards.
Okay.
Just
I know you wouldn't,
let me forget.
but when everything is cut off, I'll tell you.
No, I will. But anyways, I was having this conversation that it's like, imagine amassing so much success or knowledge or expertise, and you can really benefit and impact so many lives by just, even if it's like, again, I can't have a million conversations with a million different people on a regular basis, but like there's so many people that spend decades of their lives, dedicating their works and their businesses or their careers to solving certain problems. And it's like, the reason why I love mentorship is because it's this concept of wisdom without the wounds. There's people that spent decades of their life trying to build something, trying to solve a problem. And as somebody trying to aspire to do what they did, it's like, the best way to collapse that time and knowledge is to really get around, them. And so, but there's people that are like, they're like selfish almost. I feel like that it's like, they want to like hold it in and not give it back.
Because they had the wounds.
Yeah.
So some people are not okay with somebody having something that they have without the pain that it came with.
So true.
You get what I'm saying? Like, and a lot of people don't like to let go because they feel like they earned their wounds.
Yeah.
And, man, that...
But they earned the wounds. But, I love this concept of being like a self-made millionaire per se, self-made multimillionaire, self-made billionaire, and I get it. But nobody is 100% just self-made. There had to have been people and relationships along the way that really helped propel them. And so even though, yes, like I understand the wounds and wanting to hold it in, it's like I still feel, and maybe this is just me, there's some sort of obligation that we all have as people to try and help, lift others up. And if you can provide value for them, that's what you should strive to do at all times.
Before we move on forward, because I feel like we're about to cover a lot, but there's one question I want to get to, because I know there's somebody that's watching that's like wanting to start being like you.
Yeah.
They love how you were 18 and now you have this business. But the one thing that you said that they might not have, you said, I'm blessed because I'm passionate about what I love. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, in America right now, people don't know what they want to do or how to go about things. When you were 18, did you already know this is what you wanted to do, or did you stumble upon this life?
I think that's a great question, because, this whole concept, it's some of the most cliche advice, right? Like, work hard, follow your passion. And I think in most cases, again, excuse my language, Scott Galloway talks about this a lot, but like kind of when people say follow your passion, it's bullshit, because the only people telling you to follow your passion are people that are rich, that have already made it. And I think that's true in most cases. But what I think following your passion does is it helps you avoid burnout, because I look at us again, the amount of times that we had 5 a.m. flights where you have to get to the airport at 2, 3 a.m. and you went to bed at 1 a.m. the night before. The only way that you're able to continually do that over and over and over again is if you really love what you do. Otherwise, it really isn't going to last. But the way that kind of we stumbled upon it, I think, was becoming great at one thing. And in our case, it was we knew how to go viral. We knew organic content creation, and there was always a passion for kind of wanting to do something business related. I was a freshman at the University of Texas, myself, my brother, and a childhood friend who I met in Boy Scouts. The three of us became Eagle Scouts together, and we were the three that ultimately started the channel, still run the channel together to this day. Mentioned earlier, but they've done an incredible job building out the businesses. But we all had a common, want to kind of do something business related. Again, from the DC area. Anybody that's from the DC, Virginia, Maryland, like the DMV area, again, it's a very structured environment. It's government jobs, contracting, defense, politics. It's not a really entrepreneurial place. It's not collaborative. And so, for that reason, that's kind of why we all gravitated towards one another. But all three had different skill sets. And so I think that I was actually having this conversation with somebody else yesterday who just was a fan of the channel and was kind of asking me, they're trying different things, trying to figure out what they want to do. And I said, in my case, I think it was, if you, work really hard, there's a lot of different skills that you can develop in today's world. If you can become great at one thing, becoming great at something, I think, is where a lot of passion will develop. Because to me, having success at something, winning at something, like that's exciting, that's fun. And in our case, that's what it was with the content that we were creating, and that's why it was just like nonstop. It's like, man, we love this, and we just kind of developed that, you know, burning passion over time. I hope that kind of made sense.
Yeah, you're saying put down the jack of all trades,
Yes.
and focus on one thing so you can be the master of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like this whole thing of, you know, there was this big thing in like 2020 about like every millionaire has 7 streams of income. No. They had one, and then eventually they diversified. Remember, like I said, concentration builds wealth, diversification keeps it. So it's like become, you know, the best in the world at one thing, become extremely good at it, and then you diversify. And that's with everything, especially I think about like networking. Like the best thing, you know, the way that we built a good company and such a successful channel was because we attached ourselves to such successful people. And I think any young person, anybody that's trying to build something great, again, being a sponge. But this is kind of what I'll say on this, and then, you know, because I can yap a little bit. I love to talk about
please,
this. And,
I love it. I want you to go into length, because this question right now is the cornerstone of a man stepping in or stepping out.
Right.
So take your time.
This is good. So, you know, you hear all the time, you know, this question, and I would want you to kind of give me your answer, right? Everybody asks this question: what's more important, what you know or who you know? What would you say?
What you know or who you know?
Yeah.
That's a tough one.
Have you
'cause
heard that? Have you heard that before?
I haven't.
You haven't?
What you know or who you know?
Like
what you know, you could know all the things in the world, but if you don't know somebody to get you to where you need to be, you're cooked. But you could know all the people in the world, and if you don't know anything, it's like, what the hell are they going to do with you? So that's a tough question. But I would say
But
who you know, because you could learn from them.
Cool. What would you say? Like, what's more important, what you know or who you know?
Sheesh. I mean, what you just explained, I guess.
It's both. It's a trick question.
No, it's not. And so, you know, I would have always thought, you know, when I think about like what's more important, what you know or who you know, right? Again, I've got a catalog of these sound bites, but one of my favorite sayings is that people will take you places that money can't, right? So, you know, you always want to think that it's people, that it is who you know, right? And you brought up how it's like you can know 100 people but not know anything. But theoretically, if you know those people, you can get the insights from them.
Yeah.
However, Robert Herjavec really put this in perspective for me. Robert from Shark Tank, extremely successful investor.
Is he a nice guy?
Yeah, super nice guy.
He's such a nice guy.
And I asked him the question. I said, Robert, what's more important, what you know or who you know? And he goes, the most bullshit advice that you receive is that who you know is more important. And the reason why is because super successful people are not going to spend their time with you if you don't have anything to offer them. And that's just a fact.
Yeah.
Now, that's why his advice is that if you double down and you build the brand, you build yourself into the person that people want to be around, they're going to come towards you. And that's just like the fact of the matter.
It kind of happened to you.
Absolutely. And in my case, it was, why, let's just, it's obvious. Why do a lot of wealthy, you know, prominent people want to spend time around me? Because what's the one thing that I've mastered in the business space probably better than anybody else? It's attention. You know what I mean? And so for that reason, you know, I'm able to leverage the relationship. And so that's why, like, I've been able to get into real estate deals with people that are some of the most successful real estate entrepreneurs in the world off that relationship, on giving them attention, right? But it doesn't just have to be about attention, right? That's why I'm so big on like doubling down and becoming so great at one thing. Like, think about anybody. Think about Tom Brady, right? Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback of all time. So am I going to build a relationship with Tom Brady off the fact that off of football? Definitely not. But there's one thing that all of us in here, and it's probably more than one, but there's at least one thing that everybody in the world probably does disproportionately better than Tom Brady. So that to me is the way that you go and build your relationship. Obviously, if it makes sense to him, and that's just one example, right? He's a great guy, has incredible aura, by the way. You know, we met and interviewed him in Chicago, actually, where you're from, and that was a super fun experience. But I do think that if you can really master one or a set of skills that you can then, you know, be able to add that value to other people, it's immensely important to build those relationships with the right people and those that are, you know, steps or levels ahead of you in business or whatever industry that you're in.
You mentioned about staying committed and not getting burnt out. Is there something that you're going through right now that you're trying to avoid being burnt out in?
Right now, I don't think so. I mean, I do think that one of the biggest things that I would say that I struggle with is, you know, I talk about this a lot, but I'm so attached to, I feel like in some way, like the performance of the stuff that I do. You know, anybody can kind of fact check this, but the last video that I've posted on Instagram that has under 1 million views was April 2024. It's almost 2 years ago. But like, I'm so attached to that, like the outcome and the performance, just because, I mean, I spend so much time trying to like be so great and create such great content and all these things that, you know, that's some of the things that people don't see, you know, and I'm a big, advocate of like delegating as an entrepreneur. The one thing that I do that's kind of like in the weeds of our business or what we do is I edit every short form video that we post. And most people,
Wait, hold on. How do you delegate but then do editing?
well, that's the one thing that I don't delegate. You know, like
That's a big thing. I mean, dude,
it's time
so wait, hold on.
consuming, you know?
So you're just saying I delegate, but I'm in front of the camera and I'm editing behind the
That's
camera.
correct.
That's not delegating, my friend. That's everything.
Well, everything else though, you know, we've got 50 to 60 employees across all the different verticals, and we've been, you know, my two partners, you know, I've done a great job with kind of like hiring the right people and bringing them in to kind of help with those MWA activities, which are minimum wage activities, is that we, you know, call them. But that's the one thing that I'd say that in terms of like that, where you feel the burnout, it's just like your constant attachment to, you know, like this, oh man, like, is this gonna perform? Is this not? And it's like, you know, if I have a video that gets like 1 million views as opposed to like 5 million, I'm like, damn, man, like, and that's kind of like sometimes like a bit unhealthy. I feel like,
Okay, at what point, like, is it healthy and not healthy? Like, do you ever get to a place where does it take you away from your family and friends? Because you interview a lot of billionaires. I've had the privilege to sit with a lot of billionaires. I don't interview them. I've sat with them.
yeah.
I've noticed some are really, really good at being attentive to their wives and their children. And some are like, they don't even know they exist because they have this lock-in, I have to get this done type of thing.
That's another great point. And that, like you said, the lock-in thing can be a blessing and a curse, especially when it comes to getting things done and taking action. But I have really tried to, especially, you know, my parents are a little bit older. I have the most incredible mom and dad. They're in their, you know, 60s and mid 60s now. And I've tried to really take time, and I talk about this with my brother. It's like just being really intentional about spending immensely quality time with them whenever I'm with them, and family and close friends in general. You know, I've had a great group of friends ever since, you know, moving out to Austin and going to school out there. So I do think that, again, that's one of those things where meeting a lot of these people, it's like, again, things that you want to take and then also not take. And the ones that I feel like have lost their way with their families, whether it be their wives, whether it be their children. You know, I recently interviewed a gentleman in Arizona, Ken McElroy, very successful real estate entrepreneur. And he says that success to him looks like when his son texts him to check in on him. And I think that there's a lot of power in that, because that's the most important thing at the end of the day. You know what I mean? I mean, like, yes, the business stuff, you know, that will always be there, but I think that really prioritizing like the family first, you know, the God first kind of mentality at all times, I think is something that's very important.
Yeah, I think business is tricky because I think it can become magic when you throw yourself in and you start finding success. And you will understand when I'm saying this, but like, fame and money comes with power that could tear you away from your family and God. The 3 G's my mentors told me. He goes, this is the 3 G's that the devil uses to destroy a home: gold, glory, girls. And he goes, if he could get into your heart to want more of it, then you could corrupt everything that God's given you. Because I think there's 2 people in God's eyes. There's the one who's grateful for what he has and what he's building, and the one who demands more and is not happy. Where do you sit with having a healthy growth to expand the kingdom for either you or your God or your family, or like a corruption growth where it's like, no, this is like I can't have 5 million views. I need to have 10 million views. Like, where do you see that stem growing from?
Yeah. I mean, I think in my case, I mean, the idea of putting, you know, God first in all things, in the sense of, you know, while I want the channel to grow as big as possible, what's more important than that to me is, while we talk a lot about money and we talk about, you know, business and growth and success and all that, incorporating, you know, the stuff about the faith and being open about that. And that's one of the big things that I love to highlight is, even though, again, we talk a ton about money on the channel and business success, to me, that's not the most important thing. I had that realization early on, I feel like a couple years ago, when I was at the University of Texas. You know, I was, you know, starting to kind of grow the channel, but I kept having this thought repetitively when I was going to school in Austin, which was that, you know, this is all kind of like worthless, because at the end of the day, like, I mean, it's, you know, money, anything material related, any even relationships with people here, it's a dying dead road.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It
becomes dust.
Yeah. You don't take it with you at all. And so, but I realized that, the one thing that is forever is kind of that eternal relationship with God. And that's the one thing that had given me peace. The really one time when I felt an immense amount of like anxiety and just I guess you could call it like bad, like mental health, was when I was going to school and, going through the motions of classes, building this channel on the side. I kept having this like perpetual thought that like, this is like, none of this matters. None of this matters at all because of the fact that like, it's all gonna go. And it didn't matter whether it was a business, whether it was just BS going on with, personal life, was never really somebody that was in any like bad drama or anything like that. Luckily,
it's just this too shall pass.
Absolutely.
And when you're a businessman and we're trained to be like, okay, we can't just think of the first step. We got to think of the first step, the middle step, the last step. So when we see the last step is like dust and we're like, oh, it could get like a little bit deflating. But then also I think that could save us and anchor us, because the verse that pops up into my mind is what does it benefit a man to gain the whole world but lose his soul?
Yep.
Yeah. So I pray that you keep your head on your shoulders, because bro, you're a rocket ship, dude. Like watching you absorb and the way you talk and the way you're growing, I can't wait to see what God blesses you with in the future.
Yeah.
You said you expanded. You have 50 something employees.
Yeah.
When does a man know he's ready to branch off and start doing other things or expand with teams? Because I've seen a lot of people sink their ship because they're so excited to move on to the next step that they're not ready for.
This is such a great question. I think a lot of people will benefit from this. I've really fascinated over the whole media business and the landscape of content creation in the last couple of years, especially in growing this channel. And again, we started the channel 2021. We're here in 2026. So I learned early on that this concept that great businessmen are terrible content creators, great content creators are terrible businessmen. And I say that because, is this my direct camera?
Yeah.
Your favorite influencer is broke. Your
I say this all the time.
Hey, your favorite influencer is broke. Okay. On the flip side, the amount of businessmen that I know, because again, I'm in the business space, but also, I would say content creator first. The amount of businessmen I know that have bought hundreds of thousands of fake followers, like it is a facade. Like this whole thing of perception, and I could air some people out right now. You are organic, but I know several big podcasters in the business space that are just like fake followers, fake views, and I'm like, I don't get it. Like, do it. It goes back to this 5-10 year thing. It's
and it's so funny that when you said your favorite influencer is broke. I am blessed financially.
Yeah.
But because my father raised me as a man, that he came from Iraq and he raised his parents, didn't have pennies to rub together. Him and my mom taught me that one, this is God's money. And if you treat it like it's God money, God will bless you. That was first.
It's not mine.
It's not mine. I am holding it. So if you notice, bro, I make good money for myself, but I don't buy shoes until I'm telling you, my wife is like, yo, I'm bringing you in to buy shoes because they work on my feet. And I know that there's children that don't have shoes on their feet.
Yeah.
So for me to throw away a good pair of shoes because this guy's going to think I'm not doing well. My dad would tell me, buy a watch. He goes, so people know you're doing well. He was trying to like put me on. And I said, Dad, I don't care if people think I'm doing well or not. And this kid came up to me, and this is an advice I gave him. And the reason I brought this up is because I want to see if this is good advice. A kid came up to me and he said, could you give me advice on being a YouTuber? And I said, can I ask you something before I give you advice? And he goes, yeah. I go, what is it that you want to do? Because YouTube's broad, bro. That's like if somebody's like, yo, I want to be a businessman. It's like, all right, my man, like, what business are we getting into, dude? And he goes, I don't know, man. He's like, me and my wife just think that we talk with each other really well. We can start a podcast and, we're just, and this is where I comment. I'm just tired of working a 9 to 5 and working for somebody, da. And I go, first of all, that attitude needs to go. Because if you're in a place that you think you're too good for your bridges, then that means you're not humble with God. Because any position that you're in, if I was working at Five Guys or if I was chefing it up at Benihana's, I would always remember and praise God that I have something to put bread on my table. Because there's always a generous, a grateful man or an ungrateful man in God's eyes. So then I said, if that's the only reason you want to be a YouTuber, I would stay clear from it. Because all of the people that you look at, they put all their money back into it. So if you're thinking you want to come into this game dream to be financially free, just know you're not going to really make money for another 5 to 10 years. Because every dollar that I made for the past 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, I took my whole entire paycheck, I put it right back into the burner, and I wanted to keep this going. And some people do that, and then they buy a watch to make themselves look like they're cool, chains to look like cool, a nice Ferrari, all these things. But if they get one call, a margin call, if they get one video, if they fall off because the algorithm one time, they're back home with mom and dad because they over leverage themselves. And we're living in a world where people are in debt or over leveraging themselves. So what would you give as an advice to get somebody away from this type of mindset?
Well, I got another saying for you. You ready for it? Stay small enough long enough and you'll be big enough soon enough. Stay small enough long enough and you'll be big enough soon enough. And the reason why I say that is, and this ties perfectly into kind of what you were, talking about, and the whole idea of like your favorite influencer being broke and when to know when to expand. It's that if we go back to 2022, about a year into building our channel, The School of Hard Knocks, we had, a couple 100,000 followers across all platforms. And collectively as a company, we were making about $30,000 a month. And that was all profit. And that was strictly off of the Facebook Reels bonus program and a couple TikTok monetization. Again, weren't thinking like businessmen at all, had no really business prowess in the media landscape. And what I tell people is that if you remember back in 2020, that was the first year that Facebook ever stagnated. 2020 was the first year that Facebook stopped growing in terms of users. And why was that? What got really popular in 2020? TikTok, in short-term content specifically. So then Facebook realized, hey, we're going to have to start incentivizing some of these big creators to come over to Facebook, and we're going to have to start, paying them better than TikTok and all this money. Because if TikTok, that's not even an income stream. I don't even care if you're making money on TikTok. You can't count that as an income stream.
I don't make any money on TikTok.
Yeah, definitely not.
No, I mean, I don't make $1.
Yeah, right.
Do you make money on TikTok?
I mean, maybe a little bit off of like ad revenue.
I always get kicked off the program. Ever since I interviewed Andrew Tate.
Yeah.
I got my verification taken away from me, and I can't make money on it.
Yeah. So, but regardless, is that I learned then in 2022 when we had monetized and we're making $30,000 in profit a month between the three of us co-founders, that you cannot build a business off of ad revenue. What happened was, and again, when you post a video on YouTube, when you post a video on Instagram, TikTok, you don't own that content anymore. That platform owns it. They can decide to take it down. They can decide to demonetize you. And so that's what happened. So we had gotten demonetized. We went from making $30,000 a month to less than $5K a month between three co-founders. Now, the one thing that got us through that was, again, going back to this concept of stay small enough, long enough, and you'll be big enough soon enough, is out of that $30K for the couple months we were making $30,000 a month, we were paying ourselves, me, my brother, and third co-founder, Josh, we were paying ourselves $2,000 a month out of the $30K profit. The rest of the $25 or $26K was all going back into the business. We took money out for our everyday expenses, our rent in Texas, everything else was back into the business. But the reason why that fundamental was so important of just constantly reinvesting is because it allowed us to, when we did get demonetized and we had a couple months where we were trying to figure out what we're going to do next, we had that nice nest egg from the several months of just putting so much of the profit back into the business, which was very important. And that was a big reason why what got us through that. But then it kind of goes to that mentality of, okay, if it's not ad revenue, what is it? And there's a couple things here. So if you're like the content creator, it's, my favorite business concept theory in the history of the world goes back to, I guess this has probably been going on for centuries, but was really got popularized with, I think, Cornelius Vanderbilt and the railroads, vertical integration. And this can be applied to any business that you're in, which is where I had a gentleman, Cody Sperber, owns 4 8-figure businesses in Scottsdale, told me that a savvy entrepreneur looks at their business and looks at two things. Number one, all the different ways they could be making money. And number two, the different people that are making money off of their efforts, and they start businesses to kind of check both those boxes. So as the content creator, if you just break down our business model and what we do, first things first, right? You're a content creator. This is how we monetize in the progression of what we did. So number one, ad revenue. Again, I don't even think about ad revenue as a business, but it is. You make a little bit of money off of ad revenue. Number two, brand partnerships. Of course, monetize off of brand partnerships. The third thing, who are we spending so much time with our content? Wealthy entrepreneurs and individuals that are running businessmen that are too busy to do content. So what did we do? We started a marketing agency, a content agency to do done for you for some of the biggest entrepreneurs in the world. The fourth thing, we got to the root of why do people follow us and what could we offer to them? Well, people follow us because we're in the bridging business. we are bridging everyday ordinary people to the top 1% of people. So we launched a private subscription community with close to 8,000 people on like a monthly subscription to get access to live calls every week with the millionaires and the billionaires that we interview. And that, has been extremely profitable and has done extremely well. Then a consulting company. And so all in all, to kind of tie that in, right? We got to the root of why people followed us, who we're spending the most time with, what are the different verticals and brands that we can build. And so we had our first $100,000 month in June 2024, and we had our first $1 million month in October of this last year, and are just continuing to grow and grow and grow. But even now that we're doing, 1 to 1.5 million a month in revenue, or I guess that's revenue profits, well over $700,000, I still pay myself as a co-founder like $15,000 to $20,000 a month. Everything else is back into the business, and I still have that mentality, and that's another commonality with a lot of these very successful, billionaires. Like Michael Rubin talks about it, Jamie Salter, who we just interviewed out in New York City. It's like, these are guys that are running $25-40 billion companies, and they're still running it like a startup. They're still running it super, super lean. And that's a big reason why people, and a big thing that people need to adapt is that mentality that, like, especially if you're young, they want the car, they want the nice watch. Like you said, it's like, stop trying to impress other people, man. They don't even care, man. They're not going to remember 10, 20 years from now.
It is so crazy to me how people have so much of their mind dedicated to somebody's thought process of them. That stopped in the third grade for me.
Pandemic, man.
Third grade,
pandemic.
I got hated. I got held back. Everybody hated me.
Yeah.
So I said, I'm going to change myself. I'm going to be like this guy. And I acted like this guy, and they hated me. And I was like, what the heck? They hated the real me? They hated the fake me? I was like, you know what? I'll just be the real me. So that way, if they hate me, they at least hate me for who I am.
Yeah.
I always hated it when people hated me for something I wasn't.
Yeah.
And all right, enough about me. I want to get into you. But you're pulling out so much of these things that my dad taught me, so it's cool.
Actually, I do want to go back though to one thing you said, because I think it's interesting to know how you even, got to this point. You said that when you were a freshman, you wanted to focus on the one thing you were really good at. And that one thing was to building the algorithm and kind of building your channel. But so you're a freshman in college. So where did you even learn this kind of like content world, social media numbers?
Yeah. Well, so during 2020, I was a senior in high school. My year had ended in March because of the whole COVID year. And rather than, I guess it kind of stemmed from a couple months prior, like November, December 2019, which was when TikTok really started to get popular. If you remember early on with TikTok, nobody really took it seriously. It was
Musically.
It was the dancing app, right?
Yeah.
Like you weren't taken seriously if you were posting TikToks. But I was saw it differently. I mean, I had no prior experience with like content or anything like that prior to, early 2020, late 2019. But I was seeing that it's like, wait a minute, you could have 0 followers, 200, 500 followers. You could post a piece of content and overnight, 1 million, 4 million, like tons of people could see it. It's like, this is like the craziest form of like free marketing that I think has ever been invented. Because prior to that, it's like you'd have to spend hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars for that many people, for that many eyeballs to get on a piece of content. And so, again, I didn't really have a business mindset other than the fact that my brother, who I had started the channel with, he, and this is, completely different thing, but in 2017, he won like a Microsoft Excel World Championship. I don't know if you've ever heard. It's super crazy.
Yeah. You just try to like brush that, like it was like, it was just like a little.
What is a Microsoft World Championship? I act like I know what it is.
No, I mean, it definitely like huge deal. I'm definitely not, brushing it under, but I mean, a lot of people are like there's a World Championship for Microsoft Excel. There is. Microsoft and a company, they host a competition every year where people from all over the world can pretty much join. So there were 2,000 total people, or 2 million total people across the world. We're talking about people from China, from India, like the world's smartest people that kind of entered this competition. He was first in the world. If you look it up, Dumoulin, I think CNN, CBS, all these, Fortune magazine, they all did like a pretty big article on it. So really interesting. But when he did that, that's when he kind of propelled him into business. When he was going into college was when he won it.
Older or younger?
So he's older. He's 2 years older. Yeah. So he's 25.
How was it like working with your brother?
Oh man, it's a blessing, man. And that's a whole nother thing is that there's people are like, should you go into business with friends and family? And I think in most cases, I would tell people not to do it because familiarity breeds comfort. So whenever you are, with close friends or family and working, with them, it's like it can breed a lot of like, willingness to not check one another or whatnot. In our case, the reason why me, my brother, and our third partner have worked out extremely well is even though there's so much trust there, values are aligned. We don't have to worry about somebody trying to take money from the business or doing something behind somebody's back. We're not yes men. We are not yes men. And if you're going to do business with friends and family, you need to make sure that, hey, you know, if there's a dispute and argument, you guys are not afraid to kind of go head to head in a healthy manner. But we've decked it out, not physically, but like we have had some bad arguments, but healthy arguments in the sense of like,
You need them.
it helps you come up with like the best decision to, like, if there's like a tough problem or challenge or tough decision to make, it helps you make the right decision in most cases. So I think that I love the idea of, you know, working with my brother. He's been amazing. I was recently on a podcast with Ken Coleman, and he was, you know, asking me about, you know, he actually pulled my brother up on with us, and he's like, I want you to kind of each share one thing about one another that you really love and admire. And the thing about him that I just absolutely loved and appreciate was, you know how a lot of older brothers can like kind of like treat their little brothers like shit, or like little siblings.
Oh, of
you
course.
know, he was never that way. He always brought me into him and his friends, and like that's like, I've seen that as like a rare thing. I mean,
Is that because of your parents or because of your guys' relationship?
well, I think a lot of it was because, you know, when we were younger, I mean, from 6 to 10, I lived in South Korea. So I spent, you know, I lived in 3 different cities in South Korea. And so when you're moving around that much as a young kid, you don't really have time to establish a strong friend group. So because of how adaptable we had to be at an early age, we just became like, we were so close because we always had one another as a family, as brothers, wherever we went. And so that made us incredibly close at an early age. So, and just kind of moving back, and my dad always told me about how my dad's, you know, has 7 brothers and sisters, and he's not super close with them. But he talks about how his dad, my papa, he did not have a good relationship. He had a bad falling out with his brother, and he said, "Don't ever let that happen." So I always kind of remember that, and that kind of has always sat with me. Just
Wait,
that
is
advice.
your uncle still alive?
My uncle,
The one, your father's brother that kind of had a falling out.
my father's dad.
Oh, so
My
grandpa.
father's dad, yeah, grandpa,
Got it,
yeah.
grandpa.
All my grandparents passed away.
Oh, I'm so
rest in
sorry.
peace. Yeah, rest in peace.
You know, my dad, he sat me and my sister down and he said, money's a tool. He goes, but money could be a sword that has family fight over. And he goes, just think of it this way. He goes, our house just keeps expanding, but it's one. So if we have a house and my dad has a house and my sister has a house, we always think of it as one. This is a very ethnic, it's not a very American culture. Like, I grew up with a lot of brothers who are like, I'm doing well and my brother is nothing, and like they didn't build together. And my dad sat me down, he goes, that if a house is divided, it cannot stand. And so when you were like, you know, we're not yes men, my sister is not my brother. You know what I mean? My sister's a woman. Yeah. So like I'll go lit, full lit, and she'll just be like, okay, yeah, what do you think? I was like, okay, now give it back. Now give it back. You got to tell me what I do that bothers you. And she goes, no, you're fine. You're fine. I just don't want to. I'm like, no, dude, like we're not going to grow unless you tell me the things that I need to learn. So I go in and I pull it out of people. And that is the number one thing. We were talking about this yesterday, and we were actually sitting around talking about this thing. If you're not comfortable to express everything, that means you're hiding stuff. And then through these things, the house could be split. If I'm hammering on my camera guy too much, and I don't know that I'm not being a well-maintenance manager where I'm like checking in on everybody. Because my dad didn't teach me to just, hey, I'm paying you, so you're doing this. My dad taught me, hey, God placed that employee in front of you. So remember, that's his child. So how you treat him, money ain't shit. How you treat him, God's watching. So I have to go and I have to check in on everybody. Now, that being said, I have a struggle that I wanted to talk to you about. I lead so much with love, bro, that I get broken out so much. I set somebody up, and they walk away. I teach somebody, they walk away. Or I'm so nice that when I finally put my foot down, they're like, what's wrong with you, dude? And then they just walk away. Do you deal with this?
I definitely do, but you, I'll come back to that in a second, but you said something that I think is very valuable right there, which is this concept that, you know, when there's something going wrong in a business, in a family or whatnot, one of the best, or the only thing more powerful than greed is ego. I had Daniel Lubetzky, billionaire founder of Kind Bar. He told me that statement. And I think it's so important, and tied into another piece of advice that I got from a guy named Abdullah Kudrath, who is an emergency room doctor in Houston. He's built like 13 companies in Houston. And his big thing that's made him really successful is this idea that it's always your fault. in the sense of like, if you are working in a hospital, in his case, he owns emergency rooms, and there's like something that goes wrong, rather than him going, why would you do that? Whatnot? What can you first look internally and go, that's not his fault. It's mine, because I didn't tell him to do this way or that way. So I think that that's very.
I had a problem with this, bro.
Yeah.
I will hold myself accountable, even when I was an impulsive, which is really hard, bro. Especially when you have to learn in front of the world, bro. I never knew how much of a victim I was. Oh, bro, like that's the most humiliating thing to find out about yourself, is like, oh man, like I was so defensive that I wanted to make sure everybody knew why I behaved that way, or why are you treating me this way? And once I kind of got to a place where I'm like, no, this is between me and God. Whatever journey I'm on is between me and God. So if somebody's treating me a certain way or something's happening, I have to look within myself and I have to check in with God first. 99.9% of the time, I was like, I could have avoided this problem.
Yeah.
I could have avoided it somehow, some way, through my own ego or my own pride. I fell because I didn't like the way he spoke to me, or I didn't like the way that they thought about this. And I meditated on it, bro.
Yeah.
This is the best thing that I could say. Sometimes when you worry about what people think of you, it becomes idolatry. Because you have this statue of yourself in your head and you're like, no. You need to understand how I see myself. So if James sees me in a certain way, I can't get past working with you until you realize who I am.
Right.
And that's idolatry, bro.
And I love what you talked about as well, about taking kind of like the pride out of things. And I really learned and doubled down on this concept, especially when I'd mentioned to you when I was in college, kind of struggling with a little bit of like mental health and kind of like a purpose thing that all this is like all going to go. I remember I was born and raised Catholic. And obviously now like my kind of big philosophy on like religion is kind of like relationship over religion.
Amen.
Relationship over religion. But I've always felt comfortable in the Catholic Church. My grandmother was a very devout Catholic, mom very devout Catholic, and a lot of the principles obviously are very aligned if you look across all the denominations. It's one of the things that I wish that there was a little bit more of. I know that one of Jesus's last wishes, like when he was kind of on the cross, was that like he wanted everybody to kind of be like united, right? But there was a Catholic church that was open, and I remember at like 11:30 one night, like I was just having bad thoughts, and I just like walked and kind of sat there, prayed on my knees, kind of like at the altar. And one of the things that I was like reading in the church at like 11:30, I kept going, back to kind of like Peter, and I know First Peter, I think 5:7 is kind of like, cast all your anxieties on him because he cares for you.
Yeah, amen.
But if you look at the verse before that, it talks about you have to like take your pride away before you go and do that. And I think that that's like a very important thing, in any situation, which is again, the whole concept of like the ego and pride is like, you have to remove that first. Like before even God can come in and help you, it's like, you have to go to him, and it's like, no, I need you. Like I can't do this by myself. Like I need you. And I understand that. And I understand that like I have to be like the person capable of like receiving that from you and whatnot. So I think that was a super important concept that you brought up right there.
Yeah, dude, I think
so
serving is like super, super important. I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. No, I think that that's so good. And that's something that was a big lesson for me too. And I think always is a lesson. We're always so prideful to think like, well, how could you think this of me? Or even a big one would be if I was in arguments and I did something wrong, I'd say sorry, but this is why I did it. And for so long, I didn't you're laughing. Because it's like,
dude, I would always stop her when she said that. I go, stop. I go, whatever you just said, it just defaulted. I go, you can't say all of that good stuff and say, but it's just kind of like.
And it was a pride stance of like, but I need you to understand where I was coming from because I'm not a bad person because this is why I did this. And then it kind of like takes away even your apology or why you're even coming humbly to the person. And God says like, we're supposed to humble ourselves even in front of authorities, policemen in our government, because if we can't humble ourselves in front of them, then we can't humble ourselves in front of God, right? It's that same like kind of balance. And yeah, it's just so powerful in relationships, in business, and time and again, I mean, pride comes before the fall, right? It's with every single person, every single conflict is pride with everybody.
The first sin ever created was, I'm better than God. The devil was the number one angel, and he was literally designed to worship God. His body was made out of instruments to literally praise God. And he caught a glimpse of himself and he was like, oh, damn. He's like, I'm kind of lit. And then he started talking to other people. He goes, yo, God's lit. He goes, but I'm lit.
Yeah.
And it's that attitude of like, I'm better than you. And so when I'm sitting with people, it could be a billionaire, it could be a poor man. If I have the mindset of, oh, I'm better than this man because of what I've accomplished, then I forgot that I couldn't accomplish that without God. So technically, I have to go back to his word. And God says there's nobody greater among you. You guys are all equal. Right. You guys all carry the image of God. Okay, I want to jump into faith with you. I know you have to catch a flight, but I want to dive into this. Mental health is such a big thing. Mine is the Lord, right? The Sabbath to me is the Lord. This year, I've been trying to get my temple ready and really, really rest, because I've overworked to the point where God had a conversation with me and he says, you're overworking just shows that you don't have faith in me. Because a farmer could plant the seed, but he still needs the rain. He still needs the soil. He still needs the crops to be where they need to be. He still needs the animals to not touch it. There's so much to, when we say, oh, the farmer's working, but there's so much outside of the hands of the farmer. When it comes to things that are not in your control, and being a businessman is all about being in control, where do you sit with this?
Man, that's a really good question.
I'm just learning from you, man.
Man, likewise, man. I mean, I love conversations like this. I think that one of the best things that you can do is, again, I love this idea of like let go and let God, right? I mean, there's a lot of things, like you said, you have a ton of difficult decisions, a lot of things that aren't necessarily in your control, whether it's, a certain interview that I want to do, whether it's, a certain hire to make or a certain performance of something. You kind of, again, like you said, have to let it go to God. But I think what's so important to me about it is how much more grounded I feel like you are is if you have that, right? And you notice a lot with, a lot of these successful people, billionaires, is that the ones that are typically very grounded is they have this understanding that, even though, how old are you?
33.
33. And you've done more in by 33 than most people will do, than 99% of people will probably do in 70 to 80 years of your life. That's just a fact. I mean, the stuff
Praise
that
God.
you guys have done and that we've done, I mean, it's incredibly, blessed, right? Luke, I don't remember the exact, it's 12:48 maybe is to whom much is given, much is required, right?
Yeah.
I love that one. But at the end of the day is, I think what's been so important for me and for all of these people is understanding that we are still not in the sense of we're worthless, but we're still very insignificant. And I have really adopted that mindset. I mean, we'll have, tons of people that will come up to us. Oh, you do so great. But I still, feel that it's first of all, none of that would be possible if it wasn't for, God, the blessings that I have. I mean, that's why I've really taken a lot of time to, whatever I do pray is just even thanking God for the smallest things, the ability to see, to feel, to touch, to smell, to walk. These are things that not everybody has, man. And it's really crazy that I feel a lot of times we take them for granted and don't thank for the little things. But this idea that there's something so much greater and bigger than us, that it's we're really, insignificant at the end of the day. And I think that is something that has, kept us incredibly grounded and been able to rely on that so much more than just, thinking that, we're these, great people and whatnot. Yeah. And I mean, again, there's nothing wrong with, striving to do more and feeling good about yourself. But I think that if you stay grounded and have that mentality that at the end of the day, the only reason why we're here and what it's all about is because of, the God that we have, the triune God, the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, then I think that's one of the biggest things that's been important to us.
I'm so happy you say this, man, because it breaks my heart to see the generation that we have where we're consumed with wanting to be better than our neighbors, be richer, be powerful, get women, get power. And they're doing that because they're trying to fill the void of the Lord. And it just breaks my heart because I already know that there's going to be some children are watching this. Some are going to be set free in Christ, where they're like, wow, all joy and peace is in the presence of my God. And then there's some that are going to work 50, 60 years to finally feel what me and you feel right here. And they wasted their whole life. They wasted their times with their children. They wasted their times with their wives. They wasted time to be the new Babel. Do you get what I'm saying? The new Babylon. And this year I was telling Belle, my wife, I was telling her, this year I want to build up for the first time in my life.
What do you mean by build up?
So my whole life, my father told me, work on your foundation. Work on your foundation. In the last 12 years of me being in this industry, my last year, I went on tour for the first time. And when I left tour, I said, it begins. Now it begins. It starts. All of the past 12 years was just to get me to figure out what I needed to learn, how to be with people, how to learn, how to love, how to lead with God. And I always try to figure out what was the cornerstone. What's the foundation of my life? Is it wisdom? Is it love? Is it kindness? And I finally understand that it's Jesus. That's my cornerstone. That's where I'm going to build up from. So I have this question that I want to ask you. All of the billionaires that you've met built or grew, consumed, or somehow monetized and prospered off of wisdom. But then when we read in the Bible, wisdom comes from the Lord. So should a man go and try to find many mentors, or should he just go to the Lord and try to ask him for wisdom? How do you feel the Lord would answer a man for wisdom?
I think that it's a combination of both, definitely. One of my favorite things and that I try to tell people as well is just that, we've got 3 different types of health, right? Your physical health, your mental health, and your spiritual health. And oftentimes out of those 3, the one that people don't talk about a lot is your spiritual health. But I feel like there's such a correlation between the 3 of those, because if one of those is off, everything else is going to be off. If you have terrible physical health, there's a good chance that your mental health is going to be impacted. If you have, bad spiritual health, your mental health is probably going to be infected, and impacted greatly. So I think that it's very important to have mentors for all of the different categories. In my case, I love attaching myself to people that are extremely well versed in the Word. One of the things that I'm really trying to grow on this year is, my spiritual life, my faith. I have such a grounded interest in. It's one of the things that's become very important to me because, again, like I was lucky and very blessed from an early age to have the realization that this is not what it's all about. And I wouldn't be able to be fulfilled or feel purposeful if I didn't have it at like the front and center, the realization that this is all going to go, right? Like, yes, legacy is important, but you don't necessarily physically take that with you. You leave it here. But the one thing that is forever is that investment that you make with our God and eternity, right? So what I would tell everybody is, I love the idea of having a board of advisors, right? Yeah. People for business that you can go to, people that are maybe peers that are at your same level, people that are, a couple steps ahead and maybe way bigger ahead to help you think a lot bigger. Same thing, physically, whether that's in the gym, people that you can kind of, hold you accountable for the way that you are in
Strong
the gym,
word.
your eating habits, very important. And then also, within your faith, I mentioned that's one of the things that I'm really, I don't really love the idea of like New Year's resolutions. I think it's important to like, hey, this New Year's starting, what do I want to focus on really getting, better at? I really want to prioritize my health because I feel like in the last couple of years, I've, again, probably neglected that a little bit.
You look really fit. So
Thanks, well, I do work out, and I guess I have good genetics and a decent metabolism, but I really don't eat great. And again, sacrifice a lot of like workouts and sleep for just what we're doing and constantly doing. So definitely one of things I want to hold myself to this year is bettering my health. And then the second thing is definitely just going a lot deeper in the faith, becoming a lot more well versed, biblically, and rather than just going to church and praying, but rather like really, really like knowing God, right? And so that's something that's very important for me for this year. But to answer, like you said, do you go directly to God? 100% first and foremost. I think that there shouldn't be any important decision made without having kind of that conversation, without taking time to kind of sit through it with him. But I do think having a board of advisors for the variety of different things, whether it be business, whether it be health, whether it be relationships, whether it be faith, even having some spiritual advisors as well could be immensely helpful.
I think of it like the church isn't an institution. The church biblically is the body of Christ. And so I think if you read the gospel, every time David needed somebody or anybody in the Bible, and it wasn't an angel that came down and helped God's children, it was his children. So when I'm sitting down with you, I know that God put you through a road that he didn't put me through. And you might have answers that I need to know. And I need to humble myself in front of the Lord and you and say, hey, I need to learn from this from you. I don't know this. Could you help me? Now, this is important. I pray that a lot of people learn this. Now, my next question is, how does a man know if he has a good mentor or a false wolf?
This is very good. A man knows that he has a good mentor. Obviously, I'll go back to the whole concept of like having immense credibility and that they've actually done it before. Meaning that it's like, there's a lot of people that are online for show and that are, showing, I've got all the material things and whatnot. Like That's not a mentor. It's like, have they actually built businesses? Is there a track record there of somebody that has been successful, that has a good reputation? Because again, I'll go back to like it, to me, I have no desire, I don't care how successful somebody is, if they don't treat people good, if their teams are afraid of them, if you know, I love, you know, whether you're a dominant athlete in any sport or dominant in the business world, you got to have some level of healthy aggression, in the sense of like, you got to be a competitor. Business is a sport. And so I completely understand that. But it's like, if you at the end of the day are not a good person at your core and don't treat the people around you, you know, with respect, you know, again, just recently interviewed Jamie Salter, who owns Authentic Brands. He just bought all of, you know, Kevin Hart's IP, and he owns, you know, an array of huge companies. And he says that, you know, me and all my employees, we all use the same washroom. You know, it doesn't matter. Like, I'm no better than them. I don't go to any different, you know, washroom that they don't. And so I think that having that, you know, idea of like servant leadership at the highest level, even if you're running a multi-billion-dollar company, I think that's very important. So I think those are some of the things that I look for. Is like, number one, that they're not just kind of putting on a front for social media for show. You know, they're not trying to impress people, right? Is the track record there? Have they actually done what it is that they're willing to teach you, and you know, the things that you're, you know, trying to or aspiring to learn from them? I think that's very important. And again, I mean, just the way that, like, their reputation and the way that they treat people.
That's so good. I want to ask you, I'm sure something that a lot of people are wondering, out of all the interviews that you've done, I know some of them, you know, are planned and set up, but out of the ones that wasn't planned and you walked up to that person and you were just pleasantly surprised with the conversation, which one was your favorite?
You know, I've got two for you. Number one, I think I mentioned him earlier, but one person that I've done from a celebrity standpoint, they gave us a incredible, I'll do three actually. I'll do three. These are three. I talked about these and these are great.
Will Smith?
Will Smith was my favorite celebrity I've interviewed. He was very, very kind, and he radiates this, you know, great energy. And with Will, you could tell he's a deep thinker, man. Deep thinker. You know, he's definitely done a lot of thinking and about, you know.
But Will Smith's life is wild.
It is, man. And
He's been around, man. Me and you've been in the game for a few years, and look how long life feels, right?
Yeah.
So when you think about Will Smith, you're like,
Crazy.
Jesus Christ, dude, I was in diapers when this guy was.
Yeah, but my biggest takeaway from Will is this concept is that he talks about how, you know, listening to people, taking advice from people that haven't done the thing that you want to do is insanity. Like, it makes you crazy, right? The concept of never taking advice from people that you wouldn't trade places with. That was one of the biggest things that
I say that to Georgie.
Yeah.
See, I have to say I disagree with that.
Yeah, let me hear it.
I did that one time in front of my dad.
Okay.
I was really young. I just started getting money. I just started getting recognition. And some guy came and gave me advice, and I was like, off. like that.
Your dad did, or just a
No,
guy?
God forbid. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
No, yeah.
Oh, you think my dad wouldn't beat my ass now? No. My dad says jump, and I'm like, which high? How high? You know, like, no, I was in front of him, and I was just getting too big for my bridges type of thing.
Sure.
And
So your dad witnessed this.
my dad witnessed this, and my dad goes, okay. And I said, what's up? I'll go. And then I said, Dad, why would I take advice from somebody that I wouldn't trade places with? I'm half his age and I've done 3 times what he's done in his whole life. Why would I sit here listening to him? And my dad literally looked at me and he goes, I would have great fear of God if I was you.
Wow.
And I said, why? He goes, because God will put you in that man's shoes to remind you who you are. And I was like, oh. He goes, because you just claimed that where you came from was off of yours. He goes, where you are is through the will of God, and where he is through the will of God.
Yeah.
He goes, don't make God put you in a place to understand why and what he's doing with him.
Yeah.
And so that scared me. And then when I started listening to people, all people, I realized that a lot of people that, are you ready for this? I wouldn't trade lives with, actually have great advice that they never acted on.
Sure.
So to me, it's just like, I think once you close once you close your ears to anybody, then I feel that you have become to a place where, think about this, right? And this is kind of cheesy to hear this, but God hears that man's prayers. So who am I to say, I'm not listening to this kid?
Right.
If the Lord who hung these stars into the sky would take time to listen to this man, who am I to say, hey, buddy, bounce? And honestly, dude, 99% of the time they talk, I'm just kind of like, all right, that didn't work out. but it makes me happy to know that have humility in me, to know that when I meet God, God goes, hey, you gave all of my children a chance.
That is a extremely powerful perspective. And, you know, the one thing I will say with that as well is, while I would probably agree in most cases that, hey, if somebody's telling you to do or not do something and they're trying to give you advice and they haven't done it, like, yes, I would say that could apply. But to add on to that, it's like, there may be some of the most unconventional conversations that we have, that anybody watching this has, with a total stranger, with a homeless person. Like, I'm a firm believer that there's something that we can learn from everybody. And it is our differences that ultimately make us stronger. I mean, that's why I love talking to people from all ages, because some of them just have such rich perspectives. Maybe they went to certain countries, maybe they went to certain depths of their life and had certain low points and overcame those. And like, there is something that I think that we all can learn from everybody. And maybe it not be something particular with, you know, what it is that you're trying to achieve in the professional sense or in the physical sense, whatever it may be. But I do think that that's a very powerful perspective. But and then just to kind of go back to the other two interviews. So that's obviously Will was great.
Dude, your mind is incredible.
Yeah, you have. What do you mean? Randomly, he's like, this guy from this thing that represents this says this. I'm like, what? How do you even remember all
I
this?
bet they feel so happy that when you like speak and you remember everything. Like,
Yeah.
You can tell that when you're sitting, you're present. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I was just caught off guard by like.
Yeah. So it was Will Smith, then the other two, a gentleman named Billy Ray Taylor. I was at an event in Houston with a lot of, you know, influential, you know, business speakers. And I was interviewing, you know, several of the big people at the event, like Kendra Scott, who is the founder of the jewelry brand Kendra Scott. She's a, you know, billionaire from Texas. You know, Damon John was there. Who else did we do? Marcus Lemonis, who, you know, built a $7 billion company off of RVs. But the best interview that I had that entire day was with a guy that was an attendee there, and he was an executive at Goodyear Tire. And I asked him, you know, for a piece of advice. And I asked him, you know, how old are you? And he said, I think I'm 64 or 65, something like that. And I said, you know, if you were to go back in time and have a conversation with your 20-year-old self, what's the best piece of advice you would tell your younger self? And he goes, if a bird lands on a branch, does the bird trust the branch or does it trust its wings? And the clue, I've seen many birds land on branches, but what I've never seen is the branch break and the bird fall and die. Trust your wings. So that was one that I really, really loved, you know, that idea of, you know, you have to trust yourself, trust your gut instinct in any situation. And then the third really conversation that really stuck with me a ton was probably my favorite one, was a guy named Tony Stevens. Again, I was in Highland Park in Dallas, Texas. Highland Park is like one of the richest pockets of people in America. You know, it's where Jerry Jones and a lot of very wealthy Texas people live out in Dallas, Texas. And I was at a Starbucks coffee shop. I saw a gentleman who was kind of in like a very unique outfit, but he was an older guy. And I just went up to him and have a conversation with him. And I said, hey man, I have a channel. Just want to know if I could ask you a couple questions. And he said, sure, I'll do it. And I asked him that same question. I can't remember the exact question. That may have been it, about like the advice he tells younger self. And he goes, you have a moment? And I was like, sure. And he goes, okay. So he goes to his car and he pulls out like a ribbon, like a legit ribbon. And again, this was organic. This was not set up at all or anything. And he goes, you see this strip here? This strip here is from 1 to 100. He goes, now the average female lives to age 81. Average male is age 75. Because I'm a male. So I'm gonna put my thumb here on 75 and I'm gonna tear it. And he's holding on the ribbon from 75 to 100 and he goes, this ribbon here, I'll probably never see this part of life. He goes, if I do, I'm not gonna be exemplatory about it. I can't dunk a basketball then. And it's gonna be the same quality of life. So he throws it. Now, you may think I look young, but I'm 57 years old. So he puts I'm gonna put my thumb here. I'm trying to do it in his voice. I put my thumb here on 57 I'm gonna tear it. I will never see this part of life. This is behind me. You know, that's not me anymore. So he goes, this strip here is all I have left. And it's from, 57 to 75. And I was like, wow. He goes, this is all I have left. And he talks about, it's like, you can have one bad sickness, one accident, something like that. And your life can change on a dime. And so he ended it off by saying, it's like, live it like you dream it, this idea that, act on the dreams that God had kind of given you. And so that was one of those conversations that, man, it really, really stood with me. Just the idea that like every you live each day as like a life in miniature. Living on steroids is what he said. Live your life on steroids. Not literally, but actually, just taking advantage of each day as a gift and a blessing from God.
That's
Praise
so
God.
sweet.
What a beautiful
So
thing.
good.
Yeah.
I know you got to catch a flight, so I want to end it with a question. Manifestation, calling out to the universe, and then, praying to God. A lot of people say that it starts with your attitude, it starts with your mouth. You've hung out with a lot of winners. I've hung out with a great amount of people. I've been blessed to have a lot of conversations. And what I've learned is I could tell a man within 10 minutes of meeting him who he is by the way he speaks about himself, the way he speaks about his loved ones. How powerful is it when somebody speaks about themselves or their business?
I think it's very important. I think that, just as important as it is to, we mentioned earlier, this idea of like not worrying about what other people think about you, and that concept, which is definitely a pandemic, as Gary Vee had said to me, speaking and just pushing so much positivity about yourself, about your business is immensely important. And there's times where we beat ourselves up. We do as humans. It's like, man, I sucked, or, man, I should have done this or whatnot. But in reality, it's like the more that you do that, it's the more like you're talking it into fruition as if it is the reality. And you do have this negative perception of yourself. So I do think that the more that you can kind of like shine light onto yourself, and speak life into you and to other people, I think the better off that you'll be, rather than just kind of like, again, to me, there's nothing worse than being around negative people. There's nothing worse. But oftentimes, like, we're the most negative people to ourselves. Maybe not to other people, but I think that, yeah, just as important it is, to be a vessel of not only God's word and what He wants for us, but just, like I said, it's the concept we talked about at the beginning of like just being relentlessly positive to your loved ones, to strangers, to everybody that you come encounter with, but also yourself.
I loved sitting with you, bro. Like it feels like you're a fresh air. Like when I'm speaking to you, one, I know that you're real. Two, I think that your heart is really in it. I would love to keep our relationship so I could bounce ideas off of you.
Yeah.
Cause bro, I feel like you're on the highway.
Yeah.
Like I'm with my own thing, building my own thing. And business to me, I'm not crazy excited about business. It's not my passion. Mine is like making people laugh, having conversations. But I do have to have a lot of business meetings. And I would love to call in and just check in on you.
Yeah.
Because I feel like you're 20 years advanced than I am. Like you're just on a speeding track of like having the best conversations with these men. So I'd love to bounce ideas off of you.
Yeah.
And if we had to have somebody here that's from anybody you talk to, who would you want to have on this podcast for me to learn from?
Ooh, I was actually having a conversation, and also more than happy to help connect you with people. If I can ever help out with that, I'm happy to make intros. But one person in particular, do you know Butch Hartman? Mm-mm. He's in Los Angeles. I would 1,000,000% get him on here. He's the creator of The Fairly Odd Parents.
I've DM'd with him.
Okay, have you had him on yet or no?
I haven't had him on, but I know he's religious, right?
Extremely. You guys, we would love him, dude. He's the best guy, and he talks about, I interviewed him that, he stopped answering to Hollywood and started answering to Jesus and God, and he's so outspoken about his faith. He's a really incredible guy. Great advice also too about, I've always been fascinated about how, again, whether you're a content creator or you're a creative in the entertainment business, right? Like he was at Nickelodeon producing these shows. And I mean, just to me, what's very fascinating in the creator space is that longevity, most content creators, they fizzle out, they come and go within a couple of years. In the entertainment world, a lot of the times it's the same thing. But, he had, to me, it was so fascinating because he had, The Fairly Odd Parents for like 20 years. And it's like, that's so hard. And they wanted to cut it after the first season, even though it did really well. But he ended up persisting through, and it was obviously a massive show. But I think he comes to mind. And then there's also some other people as well that I'd be happy to connect with. I mean, you take a look and see who you're like. If you're like, hey, could you get an intro to that person? I'm more than happy.
We'll start with that one.
Yeah,
I love that. Dude, you just brought such a great atmosphere to this place, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for being here, bro. I hope you catch your flight, dude.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, good luck with everything.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next week.